Hey everybody, Tom here with ProCalcs. In part one, we covered what energy codes are. Now, let's actually pass one.
So looking at these things, so the site that you want to go on to where you can educate yourself about your state's individual energy code, you can go to codes.iccsafe.org. And now when you go on there, you're going to find your state. And when you go there, you're going to find the book that says energy conservation. Always want to look at where it says current edition. And when you click on that, over on the left-hand side of the page is going to be all these numbers. Now, the first part of this is for commercial, and you'll see it says residential energy efficiency. And this one chapter section right here is going to give you a lot of the information that you need, whether you're an architect or a builder, an HVAC company, a homeowner, whatever it may be. This page is going to tell you exactly what you can and cannot do. And the great thing is that they put a lot of the big things on tables. So for instance, we talked about Form 402, which is Table 402. And what that does is that dictates, based on the climate zone, what the prescriptive requirements are for the windows for all the climate zones. The fenestration, the U factor, if you have a skylight, they're a little different. If it's a wood frame wall, they have an R value for that. If it's a mass wall, like a block wall, they list it there. In Florida, if you have a block wall and the insulation, which typically it almost always is on the inside of the block wall in Florida, you must have R6 if you're doing the prescriptive method. And here's one thing that a lot of people, especially architects, builders, and even some HVAC companies get wrong. When these values that they're showing you on these charts, they are not calculating air gaps and webbing on the block walls and the fairing strips and all this other stuff in between. They are talking about added insulation. It doesn't have to be R6. It could be R4 or R4.1 or R5, as long as I look at somewhere else in my house to increase what code requires to offset the negative on the wall insulation. And we run into this one quite a bit, where a lot of people will call us up, want us to do their calculations, and they'll fill out a special form we have. But they start trying to calculate these things in their head, and they're like, well, no, my wall's an R7. And we've trained our team to make sure that we don't just ask, what's the R value? Tell me how you're getting to that R value on your wall. And that's where we find out that they start talking about the air gaps and the fairing strips and the drywall. And then I'm putting R4 insulation. So with all that other stuff, it comes out to an R7. The building code doesn't care about all that other stuff, because all other stuff is pretty standard. All they care about is what you are adding to that structure. So R6 is the minimum that you can add if you're going to do the prescriptive method. But in the prescriptive method, again, like we said, if the wall does not meet R6, the house fails, period. So performance method doesn't. So if they're going to have R4 in the walls and their windows aren't going to quite make the 0.40 and the 0.25 that we talked about, they're going to have to do something with the air conditioning system, because that's one of the biggest factors. They're going to have to maybe go to a 16-SEER heat pump, and they might have to go to a tankless water heater, and they might have to go to something else. Another big one that in the prescriptive method that gets people, which forces us again to have to go to the performance method, is what's the percentage of window to walls. So if I take my entire surface of my walls and then I subtract out, then I take the percentage of window square footage. If the windows are greater than 20% square footage of the wall square footage under the prescriptive method, your house will fail. Now, in the performance method, if it's greater than 20%, you can still get it to pass. But again, it becomes more difficult. It just gets too expensive with some homes. So when we look into the performance, some of the big things in the performance method that, again, a lot of these are mandatory in the prescriptive, such as going to a heat pump. And, in a heat pump system, if you are going to use a little bit of heat, it's very efficient heating. But there's a lot of people that in Florida would never turn the heater on. So they're like, well, I don't need a heat pump. If I turn my heater on twice a year, I'm lucky. So why would I spend the extra money because a heat pump system is more expensive. I mean, I don't know exact dollar amount, but it could be in $1,000. Well, because with the energy codes, you get a lot of points. You know, if you're putting a point factor with everything, you get a lot of points for having a heat pump versus a straight cool system. The other thing that you get a lot of points for is having a duct leakage test done. Now, in Florida, new construction, a blower door test to see how leaky your house is mandatory. You can't get away from it. And in Florida, that's 7 air changes or less. And anything below 3 air changes, you have to actually bring in outside air. Duct leakage test is not mandatory in new construction if you're not using the prescriptive method. In prescriptive method, you have to have a duct leakage test, and you actually have to meet a certain criteria. But if you're doing the performance, and let's say you couldn't afford to get the Mac Daddy windows and you had to go with a 14 SEER heat pump because you couldn't afford a 16 SEER heat pump, and you had a 60-gallon water heater, there's a good chance that that house isn't going to pass. But if I do a duct leakage test and I get my duct leakage within a certain percentage, that gets so many points, I could end up passing my entire house just with that one thing. And doing a duct leakage test, having the company test it while they're out there doing your blower door test is not that much. A few $100, $300 maybe, depending on how big your house is, how many grills, and so on and so forth. If you get it to where you need it to be, you get a ton of points for that. I can just look at the things that somebody's giving me and I can tell them right off the bat, your house isn't going to pass. You know, and that's when they come to us with these window values of a U factor of 1.04 and an SHGC of 0.35. In climate zone 1 and 2, and I already told you climate zone 1 doesn't care about U factor. In climate zone 2, the U factor is not as important. So if the SHGC is low enough, even with a 1.04 U factor, we've had houses pass, in fact, who his windows are always 1.04 and I think he's at 0.27 or 0.30 SHGC, but they do other things in the house to exceed the energy code to make up for the negative of the windows. Because those windows in some cases can be very, very expensive, and a lot more expensive than upgrading the air conditioning system to a 14 SEER heat pump, or 16 SEER straight cool, or 16 SEER heat pump, or spending $200-$300 or whatnot on a duct leakage test. And then, if it's leaky, if the air conditioning company is the one installing it, they're going to fix it for free. So you have your duct leakage test company come in at the same time they're doing the blower door test. Your air conditioner guy can be there at the same time, and then they can go up there and fix the leaks. The other part is the air changes, the ACH in your house. In certain climate zones outside, I think it's climate zone 3 and up, you must be at 3 air changes per hour or less, or your house fails. In Florida, same thing. For the performance method and prescriptive, 7 air changes or less, and your house would still pass. 7 air changes is like leaving the front door open. But the problem is it's so inexpensive. First, if the house is built properly, the architect does it, the builder builds it, and all of his subcontractors are responsible for making sure that they do their job to get the house tight enough to meet within that code. But it's so easy to walk around with a foam can and walk around and just start seeing little gaps, especially around the windows and the receptacles and things that lead to the outside. If you have ceiling insulation, making sure that the ceiling is around the hi-hats and electrical thing, and going in and just spraying around that stuff to seal that air gap. What you're doing is called the thermal envelope, and you want to make that thermal envelope as tight as possible to get it within that range. But the key here is if you just let things go and you're like, I can be at 7 air changes, I'm just going to get it as close as I can, and I know I'm still going to pass. The problem is that is going to cause you to have a much larger air conditioning system to offset the massive amount of air that's constantly circulating through your home. Your air conditioning, you're heating this house, depending on whether the house is positively or negatively pressurized, you're going to be sucking in or pushing all that stuff out that you have. And you don't want that. So you want to get the house within a reasonable tightness so that what's going on, and if you get it too tight, like less than 3 air changes, then what you can do is work on getting the air exchange properly. And there's one called a UA alternative, which is it's pretty similar to the performance method. It's not as strict as prescriptive method where you have to have a certain thing and that's it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And, if you're not going to build a house right now, maybe you're going to renovate because interest rates are so high right now and housing markets kind of drop down. There's a specific codes in there that dictate when you have to have an energy calculation done on an existing home. And kind of just the quick rules of thumb that I give to my team. And obviously we don't like using rules of thumb, but these are really good when we're talking to the homeowners. Is in Florida, the two things. One, we kind of call it like FEMA rule. If you are renovating greater than 50% of the square footage of your home, you have to have an energy calculation done. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So if you're adding a second floor and the second floor is greater than 50% or greater of the existing home, you have to have an energy calculation done. Well, because you're adding a second floor on it, you're going to have an energy calculation done anyway, because you're completely changing the energy footprint of the first floor. The other thing that we kind of do a rule of thumb when we're talking to people is the cost of the renovation greater than 30% of the assessed value of the home, not what the real estate person says. Your property appraiser tax assessment on the home. You'd be surprised, especially recently when housing prices went through the roof. The assessed value according to the property tax appraiser is what the value is. So if you got an appraised $70,000 home, property tax appraiser $70,000, and you end up doing greater than 30%, your renovation is greater than 30% of that $70,000, you are going to be required to have an energy calculation done based on the items. Now, there's a lot of other little reasons that you would need energy calculations, but a lot of that stuff's on that page on chapter 4 of the Residential Energy Efficiency Code. So I hope this helped you a little bit to better understand about energy codes and things. Take this in mind when you're going to build a new house, buying a new house, or renovating an existing house. Take a look at these energy codes before you get started to help you better understand the right thing for you. If you have any specific topics that you'd like us to talk about, go ahead and send us an email at tom@procalcs.net, and we'll be able to go ahead and use that information to create some of these courses later on at home. All right, everyone, have a blessed day. We'll talk to you soon.